At this time, I'd like to go to Representative Hearn, and she has some visitors with her who will be testifying. Good afternoon, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman and members of House Finance, and thank you for coming early today to hear this bill. House 5542 is a joint resolution that makes an appropriation of $750,000 for Polaris Manufacturing Extension Partnership. What the Polaris Partnership does is it helps our manufacturing companies to do making a widget better, and offers their expertise. Currently, this would increase, this $750,000 would match what the federal government is giving the state of Rhode Island. So currently, without any state match, we're leaving $750,000 of technical expertise on the table. We're only one of 3 states that do not provide a state funding share, the match of 1-to-1. It would allow Polaris to assist our small manufacturers in the state, which are our biggest number of manufacturers, consisting of about 95% of our manufacturers. I'm going to have testimony today by the people who know this business much better than myself. Christian Cowan, who's director of Polaris, Dave Marquis, the president of ChemMart, and Minion Kolb, who's the president of JL Anthony. These are companies that are located in Rhode Island, in our communities, helping our communities, employing our residents, and I can't be more pleased to be introducing this bill today. So thank you, Chairman, and we'll start with Christian.
Thank you very much, Representative. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the committee.
Thank
Sir,
you.
good evening, good afternoon, and welcome if you'd like to begin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Rep. Hearn. Christian Cowan, I'm the Center Director for Polaris, the Polaris MEP program. The MEP program, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, lives under the Department of Commerce. It's a national program. Started in 1988, but now has grown to $300 million national program. From a national data standpoint, it engages more than 30,000 manufacturing companies every year, creating more than 18,000 jobs nationally, and over $2.2 billion of additional sales are recognized through national programs implemented at manufacturing companies. So the MEP programs are all about introducing efficiency programs into companies. So it's lean manufacturing. We are measured in job growth, we're measured in revenue increases, and we're measured in cost savings. So our national grant, our federal grant, is renewed every year, and it depends on a third-party surveyor who surveys the manufacturers directly and measures our impact to those manufacturing companies. So a quick example of a company that we've been very successful with, the second to last page in the handout that you have is a company called Tannery Industries, who's in Lincoln. They followed our typical model where we go in and train the company, train the floor workers, train the management staff. Everyone gets up to date on all the concepts that we roll out into these companies. And then we implement program after program inside those companies to drive efficiencies. The result of that engagement, which has been about 2 years right now, 25 new jobs that have been introduced into the companies directly related to our programs, and 35% sales increases. So there is a direct correlation between the programs that we have and implemented in manufacturers and the effectiveness and the results for manufacturing companies. Unfortunately, we don't have a state match to our federal grant right now. We have a $750,000 federal grant that we're not able to fully utilize, and it's partially because we don't have state money to match it. So we haven't been able to pull down that completely. The other part of the state match that other states, for instance, Connecticut and Massachusetts, use the state money for is for engaging with small companies that don't necessarily have the ability to afford and engage with the other MEP programs. So I've become very close to the Concept Connecticut program as well as Mass MEP, understand their models, and they largely leverage state money to really drive efficiencies into the small companies, which are really the companies that need our support services. So On page 30 of the handout, there is a chart that essentially says what $750,000 of state funding will impact into the state of Rhode Island. And these are third-party validated numbers based on the historical performance of the center. So $750,000, how does it drive jobs, revenue growth, and cost savings inside those companies? The numbers are pretty dramatic. I've gotten questioned several times on those numbers. Those numbers came from the third-party surveys and from the manufacturers. So it's how we justify our federal grant, it's renewed every year, and all extrapolated from what is happening in the manufacturing companies that we're able to engage with. There's a lot of data in the handout. I am happy to answer any questions or comments about our program or companies that we engage with.
Thanks,
Thank you
Christian.
very much.
Yeah, push that up and just introduce yourself.
Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for seeing us and listening to us today. My name is Dave Markey. I'm the president of a company called Chemart. We're located in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Our big claim to fame is we make the White House Historical Ornament, which is the national ornament for the state, and we do a number of state programs and different things of that nature. Just by definition, being an ornament maker in the United States is an oxymoron. As you can tell, most of that stuff went to China, so we've had to adapt and reinvent ourselves to stay competitive. The other example that Christian talked about was Tannery. Tannery is my neighbor. He does electrolytic plating. Primarily his business with jewelry. Again, had to reinvent himself. Going through that process is very trying and very difficult, and we need help. And the MEP programs help manufacturers help them improve, do continuous improvements to their processes. It's a lot of buzzwords. We talk about innovation and we talk about continuous improvement, but basically what they do is they help us take a look internally at how our systems work and help us with best practices to improve our process. They've helped us streamline our organization. They've helped us get certifications that we need to be able to apply for different types of businesses. They've just helped us in so many ways to become a better organization and to go from competing on a state-to-state level to a global economy. And that was a big change. So we've gone through that process. I'm here now not only as a client, but as an advocate. Because when I look at the state of Rhode Island, we have about 40,000 jobs in manufacturing. That number used to be a lot higher, and our history is based on manufacturing. But the ones that are left, we survived because we changed. There are about 1,600 companies that manufacture. About 1,400 are less than 50. So it's the vast majority. They can't afford the services. And one of the things that we'd like to try to do is to try to take the match and use it directly for those small businesses who can't afford the process to help them out. The MEP works at a reduced rate. So if I got a consultant, it would cost me more than if I used Polaris. But I can afford the service. A lot of the other companies can't, and they have no way to get to it. If we help the small companies, we all know that Rhode Island is based on small businesses, and Rhode Island was founded on those businesses building themselves up. But they don't have the resources or the capability to do that by themselves, and they really need help. It's a national program. There's only 3 states that don't do it. This is our history. Samuel Slater is right down the street in Pawtucket. I mean, that's our history. To not offer some type of service to help the manufacturers of the state, and to really utilize these dollars, I think would be doing the state a disservice. And I think that we can really help ourselves. And the last thing I'd like to say is, this is data that you'll get, so you'll have real data to see how we're doing. It's not we're asking for the money and you don't see how it's spent. You don't see it because it's a national program. We have to have data that's verified by third party or created by third party. So it aligns with everything the state's trying to do. It helps us retain and build jobs. It gives us a systematic approach to it, and it gives us real data to see how we're doing to gauge the success of the program on a go-forward basis. So I just think I urge you to consider it. I think it'd be a great investment in the state, and I'm hoping that somehow we'll be able to find our way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Thank you for having us. I I own a company that's been in operation for 100 years, and we're not doing well right now. And it's partly because we have a huge cash flow problem. We only hire usually 14 to 15 people. We'd like to hire more. We can't find the people here in the state because we don't have enough employees to do the training as well. However, our cash flow problem doesn't come from not having enough employees. It comes mainly from the fact that most of the mills in the U.S. have left, and all our material comes from Europe now, and the result is we never can order anything under 50,000 pounds. We are the raw material manufacturer for people like Boeing Aircraft and all those. We make the initial parts for the airplanes and for the engine parts. And we are a viable company if we had some help. And I'll be very honest, I have seriously thought, because we have no customers in the state of Rhode Island, it would be viable for us to move out of state, because both Connecticut and Massachusetts are willing to help us get back on coal. We still are fairly aged in our production process, and that's why I went to Polaris to seek help. But right now I cannot afford Polaris's fees. I'd be glad to donate, give as much as I possibly can. But I do see that Connecticut and both Massachusetts would jump right in with money. They wouldn't even ask. It's not a question of money for them, because they have the money to match all this. And therefore, I would be very appreciative if you would consider this. Well, I'm not the only small company that's in this boat. There are a lot of small companies, and we're likely to just give up after a while, because you just can't always struggle. You have to get a break at some point. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Certainly does.
Done good.
Thank you. Are any questions of the members of the panel? Representative Serpa?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Christian, maybe you can answer this question, and maybe I missed it when you began. So you've never had a state match, is that correct?
That's correct.
So have you accessed a percentage or a portion of the federal money, but you can't access all of it? Is that what's
correct.
been going on?
We have not been able to pull down all $750,000 of our federal grant, correct?
How much have you been averaging?
So the past 2 years, we have pulled down about $350,000 and about $500,000 of that grant.
But that's paid for by private
And
employers.
I'm sorry, correct.
Yeah, accessed by private.
So that all comes from the fees from manufacturing companies that allows us to pull it down. And so we don't have the state match to be able to pull down the rest. And that's where the gap is.
I understand.
And-
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Abney?
Thank you very much, Christian, for all you're doing in helping the manufacturing in the state of Rhode Island. My question, my understanding that I'm trying to get is that, are the sources of your income right now from the federal government, from the fees that you charge, and then this state grant, would that make up how you are able to survive in your company?
Correct. It's a matching grant from the federal government. So the state funding of the program would allow us to pull more federal money down.
The only time you can pull money down, though, is when you actually spend it?
Correct.
Okay, just trying to get that straight.
But and the spend has to be matched with money coming into the program. So that's either client revenues or state funding.
And finally, in trying to determine an ROI or return on investment of the $750,000 that you're asking from the state, I know that part of it is shown in the success of the other companies, but when we're in a tight budget year, how would I justify or show the return on investment of that $750,000 in a way that would be understood by most?
So on page 30 of the handout, so that's direct, it's extrapolated from our historical programs. So if you take those numbers, it's dollar for dollar, they go up and down. So if it's less than $750,000, those numbers will scale up and down, the jobs, revenue impact, and cost savings. So it's a direct correlation there. The other thing that I have talked to people recently about is those returns, those impacts are measured by a center that's operating with less than optimal funding. So when you look at a center like Connecticut that gets $1.5 million from the federal government and $1.5 million from the state, they are a very highly efficient state. in terms of operations. So their impacts, dollar for dollar, are much higher because they are able to recognize some efficiencies with their state funding. The center director from Connecticut actually wrote a letter supporting, explaining what the state dollars mean to her. That's in the last page of this handout as well.
And finally, do you have more companies that need your help than you can provide the help to because of funding?
Correct. I have been to many small companies recently where their margins are thin. They do have cash flow problems. We walk their manufacturing floor and we start pointing out initiatives that they can start applying to their floor to recognize some efficiencies. When we get to the end, similar with JL Anthony, we start talking about the contract and our fees, et cetera. And there's a significant number of them. Again, going back to the 1,400 small manufacturing companies, there's a significant amount of them that just can't afford our services right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your testimony this afternoon. I'd
Thank
like
you,
to ask,
Thanks, Chairman.
President Dooley from URI, Brian, is it Brian Nahr from URI also, and Bill McCourt from the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Great to see you all again. Thank you for your time today, and thank you very much for considering this resolution as part of the budget development process for the state of Rhode Island. Since I came to the University of Rhode Island in 2009, I have been looking for every opportunity that we could leverage the assets of the University of Rhode Island to improve the economic climate here in the state. As members here will know, one of the first things that I was interested in doing when coming to Rhode Island was finding a way to align the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, now known as Polaris, with the University of Rhode Island, because that particular arrangement I had personally participated in my previous home in Montana. Where at Montana State University we housed the state's Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which was extraordinarily successful, pulled in the complete federal match by virtue of having a strong guaranteed state match year in and year out. And that particular program, you can look it up, helped thousands of companies in a very rural state. I think we can do even better here in Rhode Island. I agree with many of you that I've had a chance to talk to about this, and certainly with the governor, that manufacturing can be a bright part of Rhode Island's economic future. There is no reason for us to throw in the towel on our manufacturing sector. In fact, I think we have tools, and Polaris is one of the most important tools to help revitalize and grow the manufacturing sector here in Rhode Island. I think that can be a critical part of the economic recovery of our state. I'm encouraged by the progress that has been shown by Polaris over the last year. I think we have identified a number of ways that if we can make our services more affordable to the companies of Rhode Island, that we can provide direct support to help them grow and add jobs. I think adding jobs would be a critical component of the ROI, and one that I think we would be able to document over time. As has been indicated in previous testimony, we would provide all those metrics to you. It would be a relatively straightforward assessment for this committee and for the House and your colleagues there, as well as in the Senate, to assess the progress that we make, and we would be happy to be assessed on the basis of that progress. So thank you again for your time. I'm very excited about the opportunity, what we can achieve at Polaris by working together between the University of Rhode Island and the state of Rhode Island, and I hope that this is something that you'll be able to seriously consider as you move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brian Nath. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the University of Rhode Island Research Foundation. Christian had asked me to come speak here on behalf of Polaris, which is part of the URI Research Foundation. As some of you may know, we were formed by the state legislature in 2007 through the University of Rhode Island Research Act. And our mission has grown since formation to include not just trying to enhance the university's efforts to expand research and to serve as an agent of the Rhode Island Board of Education for administering intellectual property, but also to provide support for the Rhode Island Small Business Development Center and Polaris MEP. RIMES, as Polaris MEP was once known, was an organization which the Research Foundation has adopted at a time of extreme need at the encouragement of our board member and President David Dooley. Through substantial investment, RIMES has been rebranded, and Polaris hired Christian as a director, and Polaris MEP has been transformed. We feel it's re-energized and poised for success with Christian's leadership and a strong and motivated team of existing and new project managers. The university and the Research Foundation are committed and motivated to the mission of Polaris MEP to move Rhode Island manufacturers forward. There's so many ways for these entities to complement each other with regards to our research, intellectual property, corporate and university collaborations, and to engender opportunities for our best and brightest graduates in Rhode Island manufacturing. So as you've heard, with the limited support, RIMES previously, and now Polaris, has lost money, actually. It lost the opportunity for quite a few years prior to being adopted by the Research Foundation, and it's currently still in the red. So the Research Foundation has shown its willingness to actively support Polaris as it gets off the ground, but additional sources of support, such as this state money, would be necessary to make Polaris MEP and small manufacturers of Rhode Island a success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. McCourt. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you today in unequivocal support for this bill that was filed. I cannot begin to tell you how important the services are that Polaris MEP and the other MEP organizations have and their impact, positive impact on manufacturers. I think just a couple of points. I don't want to take up much of your time. I know you're under tight time pressure, and there are some other people that want to speak. The most important point is emphasize again the small business community in Rhode Island, that Rhode Island is almost a redefinition of small. The companies that use these services tend to be the smaller companies. We don't have a lot of big companies who can tend to be self-sufficient. So it's like folks that testified earlier today. It's the difference between making a change that's going to keep them in business versus not making a change and risking their survival tomorrow and the next day. I can't tell you how often Christian and I have teamed up, and I'll also say this from a personal note. It's been a pleasure working with Christian over the last 6 or 8 months since he's come on board. The rebranding, the re-energization of Polaris has been tremendous to the manufacturing community. But I will say how often that I hear, and again, one other important point, companies that use their services have skin in the game. This is not companies that are looking for a handout, saying, send somebody in to do these services for free. They're looking, and part of the formula is the way these programs work is the companies have skin in the game. They pay some of the money, the state subsidizes some of that funding, and the feds match that subsidization. So it's a really good benefit all the way around. It's measurable. There's accountability at the end of the day. But the one thing I'll tell you is how often I meet with companies who point to Massachusetts and Connecticut and say, look at what they have in Massachusetts and Connecticut to offer their programs. These are programs funded and supported by the state, and they do a terrific job. There is absolutely no reason why we cannot do the same here. And for the amount of money that we're talking about, 40,000 jobs, 10% of the private sector workforce in manufacturing, a significant cog in the state's economy, this is a very, very small investment to help that sector grow. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your support.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Representative Giarrusso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for bringing this up. It's really important. I think it should be framed more as an investment than as an expense. We're not breaking the bank, and as the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, I think we all have skin in the game. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your testimony this afternoon. Is Jeffrey Grove, Leslie Tato, and Dee Dee Chatham, excuse me. As they're coming up, I'd like to go to Representative Carnevale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to hold all bills before us today for further study.
Motion by Representative Carnevale to hold all bills for further study. That is seconded by Representative Barrows. Representative Hearn. Representative Norton, and Representative Giarrusso. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Good afternoon and welcome. Who would like to go first? Go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you for allowing me to speak in behalf of Polaris MEP and in support of this bill. My name is Jeff Grove. I'm the president and CEO of Pilgrim Screw Corporation. We're a manufacturer in Providence. We're a third-generation company manufacturing screws that are primarily used in aerospace and defense. We have been a client of the MEP for 13 years now. We came on in 2002, and in 2003, I felt so strongly about the organization that I volunteered to serve on the board. I served as the chairman for several years, and just recently, as you heard, helped transition RIMES to the URI Research Foundation as Polaris MEP. We've had a very good experience. You've heard really excellent testimony here in support of the organization. And so what I'd like to just say is that if you want to help the manufacturers in this state and the small manufacturers in this state, there is nothing more important that you can do than support this bill. That's really my message. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members. Thank you for having us in today. My name is Leslie Tato. I am the Senior Vice President for Business Development at Hope Global. I come here today with a kind of an interesting mix because for 13 years, I was actually at RIMES and was the center director there for the last 6 years of my time that I spent there until 2012. So I know intimately how the center works, the type of manufacturers that it provides assistance to. This is meaningful work. What they're doing is really trying to teach manufacturers how to work on their processes, increase their customer base, and they're teaching them how to do it. So it's not like a consulting firm that's going to camp out and be there for a long time. They're going to teach those manufacturers how to do that and how to do that on their own so that those programs that they teach them can live well beyond their initial engagement. The great thing that happened after I left, and I don't know if that's a sign, but the really great thing that happened to RIMES, which is now Polaris, is this partnership that they have formed with the university. It's very meaningful to expand the programs and services there because now you have access to students and university professors with expertise. You can now incorporate students with real-world learning experiences into real-world manufacturers who are out selling their goods and services not only locally but nationally and internationally, and really giving these students some real-world experience that they can put on a resume and take forward with them. So the partnership with the university has dramatically changed and very much enhance the services that the traditional MEP Center had. Now I'm going to speak from a customer's perspective because Hope Global was a customer of RIMES, the MEP program. And so when Hope Global had a couple of different locations and we needed to consolidate those locations and really streamline our processes, Hope Global went to the MEP system in order to do that and really figured out a way to make our processes faster, train our workforce, and have them ready to go. So Hope Global is a 132-year-old textile manufacturing firm in New England. Saying textiles in New England, let alone the U.S., is kind of, like Dave Marquis said, a little bit of a strange thing to say, but we figured out a way to make it work, and we've used the MEP program in the past to make that happen. We will continue to use them in the future. They are a national organization. They can not only help us with the individual processes, but they're great for connecting us with other manufacturers within the MEP system so that we can partner. The money that you all would allocate, if that goes to those small manufacturers, are meaningful to us as a larger employee. We are consistently looking for good, qualified suppliers. And if we have those readily available, we cut down on transportation costs, and we can have more collaborative partnerships with those individuals because they're right here. So if I can encourage you to invest in this program, I'm going to do so wholeheartedly. Manufacturing matters in a big way, not only locally and nationally, but internationally. We do matter. We do create good living wage jobs. It's so important for our economy to have this manufacturing base. I know the governor spoke about it when she was running and continues to do. We love it because manufacturing does matter, and it is a value add and a wealth creator in Rhode Island. So thank you very much for having us here today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your testimony, both of you. We appreciate it. We have to go to the floor of the House right now, so that will conclude the hearing on 5542.